Muchas gracias, Carmen. Muchas gracias a todos. Soy muy contento venir en León. Muchas gracias to España, to INCIBE para having me. Sorry, that's all I can do in Spanish, but it's been great to be with you guys. So we have 40 minutes to discuss a very, very relevant topic in the EU, and this is also a question of cooperation and international cooperation, because all of this topic in cyber, it's about people. First, this is ENISA. This is also a technical topic. This is the private sector and the public sector, but it is also a question of regulations, because regulation is an incentive for the EU. And for today, we have two experts, one from the EU level and one from the national level. So the idea will be to deep dive into the CRA, Cyber Resilience Act, with you gentlemen. So maybe I can leave the floor to Vicente. Vicente, can you explain what you're doing at ENISA, just for our colleagues to see you on the map, and then it will be Javier.
Okay, so thank you, Sébastien. And first of all, thank you again to INCIBE to invite me another year to present a little bit the work that we are doing in ENISA, this time related to the CRA work. But it's a pleasure to be here. No? So I work in ENISA already for 4 years. Right now, I'm specialized in the area of cybersecurity certification. Maybe you are not aware, we developed the first European cybersecurity scheme of the UCC, the common criteria, and I will explain a little later in the discussions. So I'm really involved in the UCC and the interplay of how this UCC common criteria certificate will be possible to give the presumption of compliance for the Cyber Resilience Act. And then I prefer to give the floor to Javier, so he introduced a little bit. Well, just before joining ENISA, I was working in Spain for a public body that is, ISDEFE, that is the Spanish agency for the defense.
Thank you, Vicente, and thank you, everyone, and thank you also for INCIBE for this great venue. My name is Javier, and I have been working at the Ministry for Digital Transformation for almost 8 years. Currently, I direct a division, the Division for Cybersecurity for Digital Transformation, in the Subdirector General for Digital Security, in the State Secretariat for Telecommunications and Digital Infrastructure. We are responsible for quite a few tasks that have to do with the matter we have at hand. On one hand, we supervise currently under NIS 1 all digital service providers, marketplaces, researchers, cloud service providers, and we will be having a great role in supervision of when NIS 2 gets transposed to the Spanish legislation. On the other hand, we are lending a hand with market surveillance for the delegated act of the Radio Equipment Directive, which is the predecessor, the prequel, so to say, to the CRA, to the Cyber Resiliency Act, which is the matter we are going to talk about today. And in that market surveillance, we are going to have a very big role.
Thank you, Javier. So let's get into the topic. Last time we met with INCIBE and our Spanish colleagues, it was at Paris Cyber Summit, and we were on the topic on the CRA, and one of the main questions of the people who are getting to the field is, okay, what is the Cyber Resilience Act? What it is done for? And maybe ENISA could bring us a few parts to better understand what is the mindset of this piece of legislation.
I will answer your question, but first you need to explain what is the Cyber Summit and what you do there. So because you just forget to say that.
Paris Cyber Summit is based on people and on policies. So if you want to engage with the European communities, like here in León, you can come to Paris in June. Thank you for the assist. Well, we have also the Paris Saint-Germain, so we have a Spanish trainer. Thanks to that, we are at the top of the EU, and we are now learning here how to be the best event, thanks to ENISA. Thank you for the assist. So now let's
go
deep
to
dive.
business.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I want to talk about first two legislations because already Javier mentioned the red. So to be a little big picture of the CRA, you know, Cyber Resilient Act is we call it is the legislation that makes that any product that is connected, that is put into the market, have at least some essential cybersecurity requirements, okay? So we can call it like the C level of cybersecurity of any product that will get into the market. So this is the CRA.
And why? I mean,
why? Because we need to have, because there are too many products that are getting into the market that are connected and are big risks for the customers with cybersecurity issues that they have no any kind of security assurance, okay? So we need the CRA. And then there is the other legislation, that is the reasoning of ENISA, that is the Cybersecurity Act, the CSA, that is the mandate of ENISA of also to develop the cybersecurity schemes, that is my certification scheme, sorry, that is what we do in my unit, no? And here is the alignment between the two. If you look into the Cyber Resilient Act, there are categories of products. There are the standard products, then we have important products, class 1, class 2, and then we have critical products, okay? So depending on the use of the product, they will go to one of these categories. And actually last week, I think there was already just published not only what are the categories, what are the products that fall into each of the categories, but also a description of what we understand that is that product, okay? This was very widely requested by the industry because there is a need to clarification. For example, if we talk about a smart card, I mean, it's not the same smart card, the one that you used to go to a critical facility that is covered under NIS2 than the smart card that you use to open the locker of the gym, no? So this was a clarification that we understand that is in that implementing act. I'm not sure yet because actually it's not part of the work, but we will request it if it's not, so we will go for the amendment, for request of changes. But is that we need to have this categorization, and that is, I think, was published, or they are working on it very close to finish, okay? So, and then the cybersecurity, the schemes, the European schemes, why is really related? Because for these important products class 2 and critical products, the way to provide this presumption of compliance with the CRA could be done with these European schemes. And here is when the UCC, European Common Criteria, enters into play, because it actually is the only scheme that we have in place working. And that is why we are working a lot to provide and test how can we provide this presumption of compliance.
Thank you, Vicente. Just who feel concerned by the CRA by raising your hands? I don't know your names. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. And who has enough information to date? Oh, that's great. Congratulations, sir. Yeah, so now we know what it is about. We heard that it has been done with also the private sectors. Thank you for that. But now it's time also to plan the implementation. And now it comes to you, Javier. Can you explain how you're receiving this piece of legislation to implement it smoothly in your country?
Thank you. To give a bit of context, when I studied economy, they told me that the world was separated in two areas, goods and services. You either sell goods or you sell services. And for cybersecurity in the European Union, for services, we have the NIS2 directive. And for goods, we're going to have the CRA. This is a very good way of understanding the matter.
True.
The services in the European Union do not have a framework legislation as such, but goods do have a framework legislation which all manufacturers work with, which is the new legislative framework. It's called new because it was made in the year 2000. and it's not so new anymore, but it underpins the security of every product that is sold in the European Union in every way, from pharmaceutical products to the security of toys for children to this bottle of water or this table. And this brings with it a lot of advantages because there's lots of aspects of this legislation that the manufacturers are currently already implementing. They are already fixing CE markings on each of the products, and these CE markings already have a hyperlink to our site where they keep all the documentation, and they only need to change the CE marking to reflect this new legislation which applies to all products which have a certain type of connection. Also, the type of surveillance that is then done on it, and the type of certifications that some companies, those, as you have very well said, that are important, class 1 and 2, or essential, that must have or can have a third-party certification. These types of certification and which bodies and which entities can certify is also guided by this framework legislation, by the new legislative framework.
And if I may, if I am a company, how can I go to this information? I mean, how are you spreading the info to the clients, I would say?
That's a very important question. So at a European level, we have several manners of outreach. One of the most important ones is the CRA expert group, which is to receive feedback, but also to give back to the community, which has sessions. Its membership is open. It has members from the member state governments, from companies of all sorts, independent experts, and it has got several kinds of subgroups or working groups. One for the notifying authorities, one will be for the market surveillance authorities, another ones are for the member states to develop the several implementing acts. There will also be outreach at a national level. Currently, the Market Surveillance Authority and the Notifying Authority are not yet to be designated in Spain. After these are designated and the appropriate entities have the necessary competences, there will be an outreach effort which has already started, because the whole cycle starts with certifying bodies, the accredited bodies. And the timetables of the CRA are as follows. The next year, in September, companies will have to start notifying mandatorily their vulnerabilities to the appropriate CSIRT in each member state through ENISA's tool. In that very same year, in December, bodies can start being notified to the European Commission. That is, member states can start messaging the European Commission saying which companies within each member state have passed the necessary steps and can start giving out these certifications. And finally, on December of the next year, on December 2027, the full obligations of the Cyber Resilience Act shall start coming into place, and companies shall have to comply with the three kinds of obligations that are stated in the CRA. Namely, on one hand, security by design and security by in every product. On the other, notification of known vulnerabilities, and on the third, information to the, which is the least important, information to the consumer, which is through the EC marking and through the manuals that come with each product. It is the first time in the new legislative framework that there are obligations beyond the point of sale. Normally, the market surveillance and CE marking involves obligations from the point that the product is put into the market to the point that the product is sold to the end user, to the consumer, or to the manufacturer. That is, it involves the manufacturer in the EU or out of the EU, the representative of the manufacturer in the EU, the importer, the distributor, and lately, this is a very important feature, the marketplace, the intermediary online that is involved in the sale.
And why Well, yeah, because
I
go
want-
for it. Jump in because
sorry.
no, that's perfect because that gives a wide range, and now we know where you are. You know where you are according to the classification. But
No, I wanted to
go for it.
mention one of the points that Javier just mentioned, and it's the notification of vulnerabilities. No? And there is one request, no? One of the requirements of the Cyber Resilient Act that is game-changing. No? And it's the requirement that you know your SBOM. SBOM is the top topic right now, one of the also top topics of the CRA. No? This requirement of knowing your software bill of materials, so you know all your supply chain, and it applies to everyone, so also to distributors. No? So this means you buy from somewhere a product and you just put into the European market. It's not that simple right now. So you will need to know that before you put it into the market, you know your SBOM, and you know there are not active exploited vulnerabilities into that product before you put it into the market. No?
And this is why this is something good, because in my country, it is seen as something that will bother companies. They will have, it's an investment, etc., etc. But it's the opposite. It's an incentive for the security of the user, of the customers. So how the companies are participating in the design of the process. Do you have point of contact with them at the EU level, but also at the national level? You can go.
So from ENISA now we have
and then
a new project with a lot of money to be true invest
to
promote this SBOM work.
Okay.
Because actually, to be true, this I was in part of one group coordinated by America, by CISA, all last year with an international group with all member states from all around European member states, but also Canada, Japan. So it was a worldwide group, and we developed one white paper of starting guidance to develop SBOM, to provide SBOM.
Okay.
And this work has been taken now by ENISA. And with the Commission, we are working now to have these better guidelines on SBOM for the benefit of CRA.
And this is also...
and this SBOM, there is a lot of discussions now with SBOM, but I think this is something cultural. Now, right now, we make to do this comparison, no? When you buy some kind of food product, you like to know everything is there. We are asking to know what everything is in the product, and you buy a Wi-Fi camera, and the seller don't know what is selling to you. No? So I think this is a...
If I can add, I wish to address 2 points. One, the standards, and the second one, I will come to it. First, the standards. How can companies get involved or get feedback or get their say in the process? Well, at the current stage of the process, the requirements in the CRA, there are like 15 requirements, have to be translated into standards. There will be 15 standards, each for each one of these requirements, stating how this requirement is going to be generally applied. And so this, for example, one of the newest ones is that one product may only process information that is relevant for that product. This is translated differently for each type of product. This will be one single standard. And there will be, these are the horizontal standards. And there are going to be 26 vertical standards, one for each of the products that are important, class 1 or 2, or essential. For each of these ones, this vertical standard will say how each of these horizontal standards is going to be understood and applied. These standards are currently being written. So if you are a company and wish to have a say, you may get involved with ETSI and with CENELEC in the drafting of these standards, which then will have to be approved and validated by the European Commission, by the HAS consultancy, and which will become in practice a part of the law, or a part of how the law is to be understood. This is one of the big channels for companies to give their feedback now. The second channel is a couple of initiatives that are right now in place, the Digital Omnibus, which are the European Union has made this call calling for ideas for the simplification of the digital legislation in the European Union. So many of the proposals we have been reading in this sense do address parts of the CRA. For example, you have said about the management of vulnerabilities. But the management of vulnerabilities is a very broad aspect. It involves being aware of when a vulnerability of the product you sell arises, and when it becomes known by other parts, notifying it, but also creating your own patches and maintaining it. So there are maybe no shortcuts, or at least acknowledged and approved ways of complying with this requisite by smaller companies like SMEs, which may be, for example, hiring the services of a PSOT, of a special company that specializes in this kind of compliance.
I would like to before going on the program, I told you that I will act myself. I have a question, because we never take the CRA like a cyber industrial policy. Why? Because if the producer needs to have cyber in it, they will ask to who? To the company, to the national, or maybe the European ecosystem, right? So this is also an incentive for the industry, the cyber industry, and for the industrial. Would you agree with this analysis?
I think it's very appropriate, yes. I have mentioned the two types of authorities that are in the framework of CRA, the Notification Authority and the Market Surveillance Authority. You can envision them as the stick and the carrot. The Notification Authority is the carrot. They are there to foment that there are many companies that are making certifications, to help companies do their own self-assessments, to create guides, to make the road easier. And then there is the Market Surveillance Authority that has two kinds of inspections, ex ante and ex post, that is basically there to check that the products comply. Not only the products manufactured in the EU, but with a heavy sight on products imported into the EU.
And how can we, go for
one
it.
thing, because actually one of the points of CRA that is actually very important, and Javier, you say ex post, is the penalties. The CRA comes with very high penalties. So when we are saying that important products class 1 is self-assessment, actually somebody asked me just before here in the coffee, and you trust the companies will do the self-assessment? Yes, I trust them. I mean, they can risk, but it's 10 million euros or 7%. Or your worldwide 7%, right?
And that's not the worst. The worst is that as part of the new legislative framework, you have a tool that is taking the product of the market. And that happens. That happens a lot with medicines, with toys that are unsafe. And if there is a vulnerability in a webcam, that product will be taken from the market, and selling it will become illegal. And that is more than a fine for a company.
There is a very important point that I would like to highlight, is that it applies to people who are coming from the outside who want to sell in the EU market. And this is key, because in these discussion about what is the EU and what are the rules, I'm thinking about agriculture, for instance, with all the agreement, blah, 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 you understood where I'm going. So the self-assessment from a product done anywhere but in the EU, how can we implement it?
I'm not sure you need to do the self-assessment in the EU. This is more for the third party. The third party needs to be done by a notified body.
Yes.
But the self-assessment, I'm not sure of that.
Not all notified bodies are in the EU. There are countries that have a free trade agreement. For example, Turkey has a lot of notified bodies. And countries that have a memorandum of understanding, like the United States of America, for example, they have certified bodies, and they can make these certifications in the United States and put the CE marking before it enters the ship. Other countries do not have this rule, but they can do their self-assessments themselves, and for the certifications, they can go to any country, any member state, and do their assessment there. I know, because I have talked to them, that their approach is to not to put all the eggs in one basket, and if they are in a third country, they spread their certifications throughout the European Union.
Yeah, so.
Yeah,
and that also in common criteria right now. Actually, we are working on these agreements. Before the European common criteria, we used to have the SOGIs, and for example, in the SOGIs, we have mutual recognition with another countries outside Europe. Now, actually, we don't have this straight mutual recognition of the UCC with the third-party countries, but we have a plan, let's see, with a recognition by now with the member states that emit the certificate to have the recognition with other countries. But we are working, and actually there are the meetings this week in Korea of the CCRA, that is the coordination group for CC. We will try to discuss what is the possibilities that the UCC gets the mutual recognitions with other countries of third party. So you have that mutual recognition, and you certify the product with common criteria, and the protection profile. This is a little bit too technical, but and you're using a protection profile with the modules with the update of this protection profile already compliant with CRA.
Yeah.
Then even the product is certified outside Europe, could be sold in Europe, and is CRA compliant. And one point also that is quite important and quite interesting, and it's like many companies will like to go for third party instead of a self-assessment, just to be more in the self place. Because now that we have launched a few months, we did the call in July for these pilots that we are piloting with different companies and labs to do the common criteria certification using protection profiles with the update to have the models to comply with the essential security requirements that are in the CRA, so they demonstrate that they are compliant with CRA.
I love this topic.
This is I think maybe it's too technical.
One small thing, even the self-assessments are sometimes subcontracted. Because you have, for the certifications, you have to find a certification body. But for the self-assessments, you can subcontract them to a consultant firm, which is a completely different set of firms. You cannot be a consultant and a certificator at the same time. So very famous consultancy firms do specialize on this.
Let's continue a bit. I have maybe two questions that we didn't discuss, but I would like to go on the policy side and, the acceptation by the private sectors, because we have lots of legislation that we're currently implementing. So as far as I understand, it's time for implementing and not for taking new acts. But do you think that in cyber, there is no other ways than regulation to help people to understand that it is crucial to secure their product, their services, and their lives? Because as an individual, I need to do the same.
We in the public sector are very aware of the load that compliance is on European companies. It's a heavy load, and there have been several reports. The Draghi report for the European Union is very famous, that have stated that the European industry is groaning under the weight of the laws it has to comply with. That is true, and we will try to make it as light as possible. On the other hand, you're right. I mean, products with products with digital elements are ever more ubiquitous and ever more interconnected. And a cyber attack through one can be a vector of attack that destroys a whole product value chain. And we are sure that third countries, like the United States or Asian countries, shall have legislations that cover this aspect. There can be no other way. It would be like having pharmaceutical products and not having safety standards. It would be unthinkable.
Go for it, Vicente.
So from my side, I know in Europe we like to legislate a lot. And in cybersecurity, we are legislating a lot. But because we didn't have nothing before. I mean, and there is a lot of, the field is very wide, and the risks are too high. And you were asking for the people the knowledge, no? And then it comes here, if we think about NIS2, one of the more important changes, I think, in NIS2 is not that there are more sectors, more companies, is that one of the points is the requirement that the management board, how is it mentioned, foster the knowledge of cybersecurity in the company, no? And they are responsible for that. And this is one of the requirements of NIS2. So they need to foster the knowledge of cybersecurity risk into the company and the training, and they are the responsibles for this and to the risk that this implies. Why? Because there is a lot of missing culture about what is the cybersecurity risk, and I don't know how in the last three landscape, but the main risk right now is still us. It's not the vulnerabilities in the product,
it's the people.
But at the end is the user. No? We are still the biggest risk whether for the phishing or malwares. How the point of entrance is because of lack of knowledge, no? And lack of behavior. No?
And when we are aware, we are the first line of defense. Yep. So this is also how legislation, regulation can help to raise the level of awareness. When we were discussing with our colleagues from the US, even the CISA, look at what ENISA and the national and the member states did because they wanted to impose, because otherwise the industry wouldn't do, because this is investment. So at the end of the day, it's money, and I understand perfectly that.
So Anatoly, we can say, think before you click, no? Like
That's a good one. So if we think before we click, what should I think as a company? And this is for you, Javier, and we're soon off. But Javier, I am a company established in Spain. Thank you for the welcome. What should I do from now till next December to comply?
Well, first, check if your products are in the list of important and essential products.
This is on your website?
No, it is not. We do not have a website as of yet because we have not been designated as an authority yet. Okay. The moment we are designated, we have it prepared, but it cannot be online. But this is in websites throughout the European Union. The European Union has a website specifically for the CRA. An important part of the CRA is the A, which means it's a regulation. It's not a directive. It does not need to be transposed.
Yeah.
Therefore, every letter of this regulation is applicable in Spain directly, with it coming to Spanish law. Second, start imposing those requisites in your product, because if those requisites are not already in your design, no certification will come out right. And this has to be part of the design of your products, if it isn't already, which it should be already. And third, is start installing, which most manufacturers already do, vulnerability management and patch release management. That will make your products usable for the important value chains in the European Union in new sectors like the managed services, for example, which is a very important sector.
But I think this is very important for us to give the to-do lists. And of course, the first thing is to go to the information, check if your products are under the regulation, and then it will be almost autopilot.
Your products will be in the regulation, but either they will be in the basic sector, or there will be one of these 26 specific products. The text for the implementing act that defines exactly the terms of each one of these 26 products is about to be released, because the text has already been largely set, and with the input from the private sector. And if they are in these parts, you will probably need a certification by third parties of some kind. If not, it will be a self-assessment. But even that self-assessment needs to be documented.
But it is quite easy to know if you are going to be important critical. No? So the products that have been selected as important or critical are because are products that are connected, but are also their functionality is cybersecurity functionality. So it's like a firewall. So they have functionalities that are to provide security to the other products, okay?
Exactly.
So this is the reasoning why they are important and critical, because of the functionality of the product is related to the cybersecurity of the product. So, okay, so it's not like, I mean, I have a toy. No, the toy is not important or critical.
Well, that's funny. That's a funny world, because we had a hack on intimate toys in France last week. So this is IoT and this is the CRA. Sorry for going on that field, but yeah, I'm not listening to toys very often. Yeah. So now we still have three minutes, and I would like to know what's next. What's next? It's an open question. We have 3 minutes to land, because Alba asked me to be accurate.
So I give you one and you give me two?
No, take all three, because I wanted to speak of managed services too.
Okay, so I'm going to take, this is a Spanish joke.
Okay.
He venido a hablar de mi libro.
Okay.
So I want these 3 minutes. So the next for me right now, we just launched it on Monday, a new head of working group in ENISA, because we got the mandate last June, and we replied on July to the Commission to develop the new European cybersecurity scheme of managed security services. In Spain, this is well known, because in Spain there is a scheme, national security scheme, so we already have 1,500 companies 35 with the Spanish National Security Scheme. So to be a comparison, what we are going to develop right now, this request is to develop a horizontal scheme. So there will be like basic security requirements for the managed security services. And then the verticals. What we have a request is to develop the vertical for a service profile, we call it, on incident response. So we are going to develop a scheme for incident response of managed security services. In the Spanish way in mind is a scheme that is, how it's called, perfil de protección para respuesta ante incidente. So we are starting in that. We just started. The timeline is really challenged. Commission wanted early 2026. So
that's
if
great.
you all think you are in rush with CRA, we are memory more rush. No, we are playing to be in rush. So this is what we are working. This is next for me.
And there is any call that you want to do, or
I just did the call, and actually I see someone around here that is also in my group. So thank you for it. No, we just started. So later on, when we have more papers, we want to be very transparent to publish all the work, because we are also in very rush, so we want to get feedback soon. But I also have the collaboration of Spain, because they have a lot of knowledge. So,
okay, thank you so much. Stay tuned. You have 45 seconds.
Well, the NIS2 is going to be transposed very soon. It should have been transposed like a year ago, but there are still many member states where this is still a process. And this will have new obligations for a whole slew of companies that give services, both digital services and physical services.
Thank you so much, Javier. Thank you. Muchas gracias todos por su attendance. I need to come back next year to have more information and to practice my Spanish. Muchas gracias, Carmen.
Merci beaucoup.
let's see.